Well, the COVID-19 cluster linked to Bateman's Base Soldiers Club on the New South Wales South Coast is having a huge impact on the town's economy. Multiple venues and shops have voluntarily closed or moved to takeaway options after 8 people tested positive to the virus. Meanwhile, the debate over mandatory face masks on public transport in New South Wales continues amid an increase in COVID-19 cases today. Joining me now, MP for Bega and New South Wales Minister for Transport, Andrew Constance. Andrew, great to have you on the show tonight. These face masks on public transport, what's your take on that?
Well, thanks for having me, Gleeson. Look, the message is simple. We're not going to fine people for not wearing them, but we are encouraging people to obviously wear masks. And it's not just public transport, it's anywhere where you can't physically distance. That's been the message from our Chief Medical Officer. That's who we need to follow with this advice. But there's other things that people need to do more importantly as well. And that includes, if you've got a runny nose, don't go getting on a bus or a train, go get tested. We need people to self-isolate and, get tested, self-isolate and then stay isolated for the 14-day period. Same time, when you're running a mass transit network like we are, carrying over 1 million people a day, we have put the green dots on board to get people to sit there. We've got the information on the smartphone applications, and at the same time, we're just telling people where possible, don't take short trips on the transport network, ride, walk, drive your car, and let's try and get through this.
Andrew, are you, as Transport Minister, concerned about the prospect of people being in close quarters on buses and trains, and that there is that susceptibility, if you like, that exposure to spreading the virus?
Look, we've had one of the leading transport plans in the world in terms of putting physical distance requirements onto commuters, and amazingly and unsurprisingly in a way, everybody has followed the green dots. There are some early morning services where we do see capacity, but we're asking people to retime their day, where possible, work from home. And the community's done this without a public health order put over the top. So, when it comes to masks, we're asking people to consider wearing them, particularly if there is a physical distance challenge. And at the same time, we don't have advice from the Chief Medical Officer to say, hey, you need to mandate them and start fining people in New South Wales. But we are, of course, urging people to across the entire community, not just on transport, consider wearing them if physical distancing can't be maintained.
And what's the latest with the Bateman's Base Soldiers Club? Of course, we saw 8 community transmissions from there. In my intro, I mentioned that a lot of your businesses down there are sort of closing their doors and just doing it in a voluntary fashion. What's the latest, Andrew?
Oh, look, Lisa, it's my hometown, and it's been a shocking year with the fires, of course, now this. But a lot of businesses in town have, particularly at the moment as this situation evolves, they have opted to shut their doors or find other means and ways to do their business and run their business. Wouldn't matter if it's Sam's Pizza in town, they're doing takeaways. Some businesses have opted to just shut their doors, and we just obviously got a lot of people having to isolate in the town because of the Soldiers Club. We quite literally had hundreds of people there last week on the nights where the health department has asked people to isolate, get tested. We've seen hundreds of people get tested. But as the contact tracing is being undertaken, there's been other advisories given out through the health department in relation to other venues across the Shire. And it's really important people stay in touch with that information. Over the last 2 days, we haven't seen any additional cases, but that doesn't mean that the virus isn't circulating, because there's still no known source of the infection as a result of the Soldiers Club. So it's really important people just be safe. The businesses themselves, we are a resilient community, there's no doubt about that. But look, the advice is, don't undertake any unnecessary travel across the state, and particularly to an area like ours where there's a hot spot at the moment. Let's get through this, ring fence it, and we'll have everybody back soon enough. But we've just got to be very careful at this point in time.
Andrew, before we go, I haven't had you on the show for a while, certainly since the Eden Monaro by-election. Do you regret not running? There was only 700 votes in it at the finish.
Mate, I've got one of the most important jobs in the world at the moment, and I made very clear my decision to stay in state parliament, part of a wonderful government and Gladys Berejiklian's team. Life's too short to have regrets. I learnt that after surviving the fires. So to me, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, try and be the best local member I can in the world, display the leadership that counts, particularly during these really dark days. And we've got a lot of work to do, and we've got a lot of work ahead of us, particularly from a government perspective. But I really just pay tribute to the community. The way they're responding with this COVID outbreak has been superbly so. And I couldn't be more proud being a member for Bega with the community that I have and the wonderful people in it.
Good stuff. Andrew, Constance, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
No worries, Gleeson. Talk to you soon, mate.